Well, my name is Karin, Karin Weeks, and my husband Ed Weeks, and I wanted to talk about our son recently deployed to Afghanistan. Jeremy came to me when he was in high school and talked to me about wanting to go in the Army. And it's funny, right before that time I had been thinking, I dodged the military bullet. I raised both the boys and neither one of them had talked about the military. And then Jeremy all of a sudden, as a senior in high school, said he wanted to join the Army. He told me specifically he wanted to deploy and he wanted to fight for his country. And my first instinct was no. I just prayed that God wouldn't take my son. And I wanted him to have the experience of young adult college life. I wanted him to want to come back. I didn't sign him up, but he went through the recruitment process by telling me one day he came home and said, "Mom, I'm meeting with the recruiter today." And I had my first panic attack in my life. I freaked. I have to say, I watched him pull out of the driveway. I cried, I bent over the table and begged God not to take his life, which seems dramatic, but I just really felt in my heart that my future was going to be pretty scary from this day forward. We drove him up to his swearing-in ceremony and we said goodbye. And he was going to leave the ceremony and fly to Georgia to Fort Benning for his training. It would be basic training and advanced individual training. They call it OSUT. Came home. I didn't want to get out of the car. I didn't want to go in the house. I didn't want to see his empty room. It was so hard. It was overwhelming, but it was just the beginning. During that training time, we had little contact with him at all. I was going through my own journey of trying to accept these events and asking God to give me that strength. But I was still really conflicted. My biggest fear was if something happened to Jeremy, would that affect my relationship with God? I didn't think so, but I've seen it happen with others, and I didn't want anything to come between that relationship. So I was really concerned and really praying hard about that. During Jeremy's training time, I was preparing for his graduation. We were flying to Georgia with our other son, Jason, to see Jeremy graduate. And in that process, my mind had been so cluttered and so busy, and even though I pray, I wasn't really listening. And one day I went and I got a facial in preparation for going, and I relaxed. And I relaxed completely. And all of a sudden I just kept hearing in my head, surrender, surrender. And I really knew God was telling me, give it up, let go. I got this. I will support you through this. I will support Jeremy through this. And I just felt such a calmness come over me. It was so beautiful. And I really felt comforted and encouraged and much, much stronger that I could face this. Jeremy finished his training and I knew he would be selected to deploy, and he was. And so last November 6th, he deployed to Afghanistan as an infantry soldier in harm's way. There are no words to talk about how hard it was. The blessing was that Jeremy could keep in contact with us. We were able to text with him, and he would kind of let us know when he would be away for a period of time. I knew in my heart that those were the dangerous times, and they were.
Jeremy would call me sometimes and tell me details that his mom shouldn't know. One time he called me and there was just sheer anguish in his voice. A fellow soldier in a scout platoon had been hit in the neck by a small arms fire. And he called me and said, I don't think he's gonna make it. And I told him to be strong and have faith in God. And they patched him up and took him to the hospital in Germany, and his parents and his sister were able to go there and be with him before he passed away.
Through Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, Jeremy was on a remote outpost in the middle of nowhere on the eastern border of Afghanistan, bordering Pakistan. And he was there with, their unit was there with Navy SEALs, and they were patrolling on foot every day. But they, praise God, they were okay during that period of time. We lost 3 soldiers, 2 from his unit and 1 from a sister unit in a 2-week period. I went from being okay, and when I say okay, I use the term loosely because every day was a struggle, that I would pray at 6 o'clock in the evening. I knew he was waking up, and I would just give it to God and just pray for his safety. And more importantly, I would pray that Jeremy would look to God in the dark times and in the frightening times and in the uncertain times, so that God would light his way and show him the way. Because, I mean, to me it seemed redundant to pray for safety, even though I did that too for the other soldiers as well. When we started losing soldiers, I really struggled with the suffering. I knew that those moms were also feeling what I was feeling, and it was very painful for me, and my hands started to shake every day. Every work, I isolated myself from other nurses and people that I work with, because people didn't understand the struggle I was going through. You know, oh, well, my kid went off to college, or it's hard to go through the empty nest, or I'm glad it's you and not me. And I heard all kinds of things, and I got to the point where I couldn't handle it, so I pulled back a lot. Not from God at all, but from everyday activity, because I felt alone. I felt like nobody understood what I was, including my husband, who was so supportive. I felt like nobody understood the pain, and I don't want to call it fear, but in a way it was uncertainty of what each day would bring, not knowing if I would ever see my son again. Jeremy's home now, and praise God for that. And even though we're joyful and grateful and just so blessed, a part of both of us is still hurting. I didn't expect that and did not know I was going to feel that, but it happened when I flew to New York with Jeremy's girlfriend, welcome him home to the U.S. soil, and I felt this heaviness, and I didn't know what it was, but then finally I realized it was a sadness that is still lingering in me, for the families of the soldiers that didn't come home.
We have a feeling of guilt for the other families of the soldiers that didn't come home. And I guess that's a good thing. We just need to apply the positives to that.
And I don't think that feeling will ever go away, and I'm not sure I want it to. I think I will always remember their sacrifice and honor their service and praise God for their commitment and their courage and their sacrifice.
Jeremy's deployment was very hard for us. It was harder it was harder for Karin, and that made it harder for me. It was harder than when I quit drinking, and harder than even maintaining my sobriety for the last 12 and a half years. My faith has increased dramatically through this whole ordeal. And I know that God is much stronger in my life from all this, and I can learn from that and hopefully pass it on to someone else.
I have used the words let go and let God many times in my life, and I really thought I had done that before. But through this experience, I really lived it. I really had no choice. Each day, I had no control over what would happen, and I felt that very strongly. And so I really had to surrender. And it was a beautiful thing to just give it to God and trust Him.
Jeremy's home safe now. Our other son is home now from college, and I'm going to take them both albacore fishing.